Is original storytelling just dead in Hollywood? Does it exist anymore? Is there a future for it?
Man, I hope so. I mean, if I have anything to do with it, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I felt very strongly 25 years ago when I started working in the industry and I just saw how broken it all was. I mean, even then, there was the beginnings of this trend of, let's just go reboot this old series into a movie. That was the big thing back in the late 90s into the 2000s, right? That was the kind of the beginnings of the reboots was, well, we're not going to just remake a movie or whatever, or bring back a whole TV show. We're just going to find IP that people knew from TV, and then we'll give it a new skin and new cast, and we'll make it a movie event. And I remember looking at that, and I was like, and by the way, which is not to say that every remake or sequel or reimagining is bad. I think that there's been some really cool sequels and really cool reimaginings and reboots. It's when that is becoming more and more, as you're saying, more and more the well that's being drawn from. And I think that's because more and more, I don't know exactly when it started. 25 years in Hollywood is a long time, but it's nothing compared to a lot of the people that have been there, let's say 50, and who have seen this insane transformation of what the studios used to be and used to do and who used to be the leaders of those studios, and how I would say overall they had more vision, more creativity, more balls to be able to take big swings and be like, no, we're going to go do this thing. And they're like, but no one knows what that is. It's like, that's the point. We're going to go make something entirely fresh and new. We're going to blow people's minds. And we'll do good marketing for it so people understand or whatever it is. And did some of those things blow up in their faces? All the time. But they still had the chutzpah to be like, let's go and actually try to be this industry that we, pretend to be, which is creative and therefore creation should be constantly, if not, it doesn't have to be entirely, but mostly new things, new ideas, taking this and that, maybe things that existed, but make a new thing out of those things. And I just think that unfortunately, though there are some lovely and good executives that still inhabit Hollywood, I don't know that they're in the majority. I think that a lot of executives in Hollywood, when the lawyers and accountants started to kind of take over, when capitalism run amok kind of started really being like, well, let's just monetize the heck out of these things. Well, then of course they're going to start hiring a lot of executives that are more towing those lines and not the lines that are in contrast to those, which is, no, we actually want to spend money a little more recklessly. We want to go take a swing at a thing that's not a guarantee. That's all just slowly kind of shifted over. So I think that there's a lot of executives that honestly are not creative or not visionary and are kind of scared deep down, probably are even dealing with some kind of imposter syndrome because they're in a position where they are being asked, what's the new big idea? And they're like, Johnson, I don't know, and then they're looking around for all the underlings and they're all scared because they don't want to say the wrong thing. And I don't know, man. But I hope that, I'm building a movie studio in Austin, Texas. I'm not the only person who wants to go build an independent studio. I think my concept is quite different than a lot of other concepts, but still, at the heart of it, I'm trying to create a place where independent artists, kind of like essentially what Charlie Chaplin and Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks and all those OGs back in the day, because Hollywood's been broken since the beginning, they knew it, and they were like, let's go do our own thing. We don't need these guys. Unfortunately, the way it was all set up, they actually did need those guys back then. It was a different system. But now we don't. We legitimately don't, and I think we need to cleave off of it because trying to get a new idea, trying to get an idea that doesn't get so mangled in the they might say, hey, that's a great new idea. We love it. But we're going to change everything about it, and it's going to start towing some agenda that we want to infuse into it. And you're like, well, what? But that's not the story that I pitched you guys. No, we love it. We love it. We just want to change everything about it. But new thing, right? So there's so many reasons why we need to get off the teat of the broken system.
So the movie studio that you are going to start, how is it going to be different from
Well, I mean, first and foremost, if you look at business, any industry, whatever, but you look at it almost like a living organism, and you imagine that the workers are the muscle of the organism, right? Very, very important piece of the organism. The skin, also very important. Imagine that the skin is the money, and the money that the muscle needs to interface with in order to keep making more muscle and be healthy, whatever it is. Well, you want a little layer of fat between the muscle and the epidermis. That makes for a healthy person. When people are like, no fat whatsoever, it's actually not so healthy. But also what you don't want is pounds and pounds and pounds of fat that are separating the muscle from that money. And that's the executive class. That's what's going on. I think that first and foremost, we need to create an ecosystem that is far more artist forward, like United Artists once was, where you have a collective of artists that are all, by the way, very good at what they do. And not just that being an actor or a writer or a director or a producer, like we all understand how to make movies. We also all understand, how much a movie should cost. And we also understand how to go lean and not pay everybody exorbitant fees in order to go make a great thing and everybody can do well on the back end. We know how to take care of our casts and our crews because we are amongst them. We are in the trenches with them. In Hollywood right now, we have far too many generals and all of us are, and they have no idea what it means to fight in the foxholes and the trenches. They have no idea. They're just like, yeah, send them to Eastern Europe and feed them Cheez-Its. And we're going to go make a movie. We're going to save 50% on the movie. And we're going to tell them it's really so we can give them a bigger budget. But we're also kind of lining our own pockets because we want to be out less money. I mean, it's just the whole thing is it's obese and it's unhealthy. It's metabolically unhealthy. So changing that is, I think important. But then there's other things, like for example, I think that one of the biggest things we've lost in Hollywood is we've lost community. In fact, not just Hollywood. Around this entire country, in every industry, in every state, in every city around the world, I think most people don't understand what it means to actually have community. Some people get their community at church, some people, but even that, by the way, there's a lot of churches that don't really emphasize community. You go once a week, maybe twice a week. A lot of people don't connect with their church friends beyond that. You might have community at work. A lot of people get their community from work. I think that's actually where most of us have always gotten community, and that's one of the reasons why it's important to foster that. If you're creating a work environment that is actually conducive to human thriving and health and happiness, and in order to do that, building a living community kind of into the campus of the movie studio, which also kind of harkens back to, well, lots of things. I mean, Hollywood used to be that. Hollywood, if you were to go up to any of the major, Warner Brothers studios, there wasn't a wall around it originally. It was a bunch of sound stages and offices, and I was surrounded by a bunch of bungalows that everybody lived in. And you would go walk there. You'd walk to work, and you knew everybody that you worked with. And you would constantly bounce around it because you were a studio employee, right? So even as an actor, like I'd show up and I'd do a Western for a couple of weeks, and they're like, all right, Levi, you're going to go to stage 10, and you're going to go be an astronaut. And you'd go down there, and you'd go work on a new thing. And there was a lot of problems with that system. I mean, that was still the executives at the time, the Louis B. Mayers and everybody, just like screwing everyone, taking the lion's share of the money. And, that's not what we want. But you can still find, using another industry, Hershey's, for example. Why does Hershey's, Pennsylvania exist? It's because Mr. Hershey's was making chocolate and needed a lot of people to make the chocolate. And he was like, well, what would probably be great for my workers is to build them a town where it's easy for them to get to work. It's good for me and it's good for them. They can walk to work. We can build schools here and health clinics here, and we can make sure that they have all the things that they need to just live a decent life. Why not do that? So the type of movie studio that I'm building is one that is inclusive of all of that. It's not just a place where we work. It's a place where people can live full-time or part-time. It's got hospitality aspects to it because I want to give everybody who lives there a 5-star experience. And then people, if they have friends or family or other people that want to come visit for various events and things that we'll have there, we'll literally have live performance amphitheaters and 3 sound stages all in the first phase that all can be for event space. So, people from the public can still experience it, but like in a very curated way. People can live there and have better lives because we have literally school for their kids that's education and not indoctrination. We have regeneratively grown organic food because that's a real thing. And that's a thing that I'm very grateful that Bobby Kennedy hopefully is going to start turning around and making America healthy again and all these types of things. But we can do it privately. I don't need to wait for the government to start fixing that. It's like, all right, well, let's go grow our own food and make sure that, I mean, by the way, the Amish have had so much right for so long. It's incredible. But getting back to that, getting back to what it means to know and trust your neighbor again. You know, a lot of people live in neighborhoods and they're nice neighborhoods, and you might know this neighbor and you might know that neighbor because you happen to see each other as you're leaving for work, or maybe your kids go to the same school. But do you know everybody on your street? Do you all get together and have like barbecues? Everybody in the cul-de-sac, inviting everyone down? Some neighborhoods do that. Most neighborhoods don't.
If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.